after the Soviets left, to install a Rothschild central bank. They were steadfast holdouts to keep their currency intact and honest. And second of all, the Taliban knew they had to take a seat at the table with the devil when the CIA informed them that they must protect their poppy crop. Now, 90% of the world's poppies, the heroin poppies, come from Afghanistan. Always have. Historically, it's the center of the British East Indies Company. You look at what happens with the poppy. It doesn't just produce heroin for the junkies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a key component in many of Big Pharma's synthetic drugs.
You mean that contributes to the 2,000 to 7,000% markup for pharmaceuticals like Valium, for like Luvox, like all of them.
All of your serotonin inhibitors, your antidepressants, every one of your major pain pills, from Oxycodone, Oxycontin, it's Afghani poppies that make it up. Where do you think morphine comes from? All of this whole drug gravy train was threatened, intensely threatened, in 1999 and 2000. The Taliban leaders met in Houston to discuss increasing the price to the CIA. What do you think they called George Bush? Poppy Bush.
That's right. And Kathy O'Brien delivered heroin to George Bush. What do you think he threw up on that Japanese prime minister?
Mm-hmm. So, when George Bush was head of the CIA, much of the deals he brokered with Eli Lilly, what do you think the Quell family is so close to the Bush family, why he chose Dan Quell as his VP? The Quell family and Eli Lilly and the Bush family and Eli Lilly go back again to the connections to the Taliban poppy fields. Now, the talks broke down. Basically, the CIA, through the Bush cartel, said to the Taliban, "You got your deal, take it or leave it. The prices remains the same." The Taliban retaliated by wiping out the entire poppy crop in 2000. So what that did, the inside information, it sent shockwaves through Madison Avenue, the Wall Street boys. The big pharma stocks took a real hit. They had enough stockpile to keep their supplies of drugs flowing for a year or two, but if another crop was destroyed, oh my goodness, a shortage of pharmaceutical drugs was a real possibility. So the Taliban regime had to change. The problem you have is how to sell it to the American public. How do you sell an invasion? Well, you have to have an evil scapegoat, and you have to have a new Pearl Harbor. Well, the events of 9/11 was shaping up. Your friend and mine, Bill Cooper, knew this inside and out. He knew the reasons behind it. When I watched the events of September 11th unfold, I told my wife and my closest friends, if I'm right in all of this, and if this was a false flag New Pearl Harbor event that was staged, we will be going into Afghanistan. I had heard rumors that there were massive training and troop buildup ready for the invasion, but they needed a cover story. And sure enough, by the first week of October, you see the Northern Alliance troops. The invasion begins, all armed with the latest and greatest U.S. technology. M1 Abrams tanks rolling into Kabul. You just don't deploy that quickly. Not and train, not and get competing warlords to be trained.
Well, there's more to it than poppies. The story was just released and it hit mainstream, that they've got billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of valuable minerals there in Afghanistan too. So we're seeing South Africa all over again there in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, and I personally think Pat Tillman had stumbled onto some truth, and he was not going to be quiet about it. I think he was targeted. I really do. The friendly fire was too precise.
That's right. I believe that too. And you know, I mean, when I saw what happened at Waco in the United States, I told my wife at the time, I can't sit there and not do something about that. And the only answers that I could come up with, what can one person do, is tell the truth. And I've been doing that for 20 years, and I've been targeted for 20 years. I mean, when I first came out, I had no idea what the Jewish-Israeli biblical connections were. I mean, I've gained that knowledge over the last 20 years, but I was immediately targeted and demonized by the ADL and by Southern Poverty Law. I mean, they listed me in armed and dangerous. They listed me in false patriots, and then Free American and Clay Douglas popped up, and the FBI's Guide to Right-Wing Extremists, and that was 8 years ago.
Wow. Well, you know, it is amazing that they will so much power. I discussed this last night on my radio show, Clayton. The Infosys, Converse Infosystems investigation that was ongoing centered in Building 7 at the World Trade Center. There were, you know, let me just give listeners a background if they don't know already. Converse Infosys is the Israeli-owned and run company. Again, it's headquartered out of Tel Aviv. Converse Infosys is the company that produces all of the technology for wiretapping. If somebody is suspected of a major crime and the investigators need more evidence and go to a judge and the judge approves a wiretap, the technology used to listen in on the phone conversations is produced by the Israelis.
That's right. That's right, and that's also Converse, and there was one other one, but they're both Israelis. I mean, basically, when we started, after 9/11 and they started a Homeland Security, the Mossad demanded an office in Homeland Security. Demanded an office in Homeland Security. I say they got a little bit more than that. I think they got the whole shooting match.
Well, yeah, in the year 2000, there were a number of very high-profile FBI sting operations that were compromised, and it was tracked to a backdoor structure in the wiretap technology, and so there was clear implications that the Israeli government was profiting illegally by tipping off these huge drug cartels of the DEA investigations, etc. So what led the FBI to follow this through was they had implicated a huge international Mossad spy ring that was tied to this Converse Infosys. They had issued arrest warrants for all of these drug ring, this international spy ring operating in America. Half of them had been arrested, and the other half arrests were pending when the Trade Center went down, and the investigation all the evidence was brought down as well. See, that's another part of the story of 9/11 that nobody understands or cares to follow through on. The Converse Infosystem angle, okay? So you add that to the fact of the need for water in Israel. the Golan Heights that were taken illegally from Syria. That